The CEO of Hasbro is pushing AI as the future of D&D, saying in his experience, everyone who plays D&D is using AI already.
That can't be right!
Hasbro CEO Chris Cox has made some pretty wild claims during a Goldman Sachs event yesterday, saying that not only was he already pushing for D&D to use AI for everything from storytelling to content creation, but that every D&D player he knew was already using AI to help them play Dungeons & Dragons. So what does this mean for the future of the biggest TTRPG in the world? Why not take a second and hit those like and subscribe buttons to help us keep putting out these videos, and then let's take a look at the claims being made by the man in charge of Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. As first reported by Christian Hoffer over on InWorld, with a link to the full article down in the description, Hasbro CEO Chris Cox is once again pushing AI as a huge part of the future of D&D, and this time he's using his personal experience with his own playgroup as part of that justification. This is not the first time Cox has revealed that his own playgroup has some pretty unusual habits that seem to be the basis for a lot of these decisions. As early in the year he revealed that not only does his group use ChatGPT to help them create characters and storylines for his home game, but they even use Bing Image Creator of all things to come up with art for the campaign. His home campaign is also set in Karatur, home of the original, unfortunately named Oriental Adventures setting in Forgotten Realms that Wizards of the Coast was smart enough to largely move on from way back in 3rd edition. Cox seems to think that this reliance on AI is an extremely commonplace occurrence, as he says he literally cannot think of a D&D player he knows who doesn't do this. Although if you're like us, you may be in the exact opposite boat of not knowing a single D&D player that does crutch on AI tools for so much in their own campaigns. And Chris Cox has put his experience forward as one of the reasons for pushing AI integration as the future of Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering, and several other huge Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro properties. So Cox is clearly basing a lot of decisions, at least somewhat, on what appears to be his incredibly unique and niche playgroup that uses AI to generate stories and art for their campaign in a dead setting that the overwhelming majority of D&D players today didn't even know existed, taking those extremely personal anecdotal experiences and assuming they apply to the rest of us. But what does that mean for AI's use in the future of Dungeons & Dragons? Well, in that same Goldman Sachs event, Cox actually dived into more detail about AI usage in D&D and what Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast are already working on to implement behind the scenes. In fact, according to Cox, AI has already begun being used in the development process of D&D. As Cox has said, quote, "Inside of development, we've already been using AI. It's mostly machine learning based AI or proprietary AI as opposed to a ChatGPT approach. We will deploy it significantly and liberally internally as both a knowledge worker aid and as a development aid. I'm probably more excited though about the playful elements of AI. If you look at a typical D&D player, I play with probably 30 or 40 people regularly. There's not a single person who doesn't use AI somehow for either their campaign development or character development or story ideas. That's a clear signal that we need to be embracing it. We need to do it carefully, we need to do it responsibly, and we need to make sure we pay creators for their work, and we need to make sure that we're clear when something is AI generated. But the themes around using AI to enable user-generated content, using AI to streamline new player introduction, using AI for emergent storytelling, I think you're going to see that not just in our hardcore brands like D&D, but also multiple of our brands. Wizards of the Coast has said multiple times that Dungeons & Dragons is a game made by people for people, but that seems directly contradicted by several comments just made by Chris Cox, including using AI for storytelling, which could be the often prophesized AI DM fears coming to life. But even allowing users to create their own AI content is a potentially serious problem, as that could flood the market with AI items, spells, classes, story hooks, and more, which could lessen the need for actual human-designed content from D&D staff or third-party publishers to fill that void, and that in turn could lessen the need for those jobs for D&D staffers. The man in charge of Wizards of the Coast and the D&D brand certainly seems to think that AI is an integral part of D&D's future, in a much more widespread way than he has ever outlined before. AI-generated user content could just mean a marketplace full of items, spells, subclasses, and more, all created with the input of a single prompt, competing against the first and third-party creators who spent months balancing and testing their entries as part of their jobs. AI for emergent storytelling could literally be the arrival of that AI DM, as emergent storytelling is basically just a fancy way of saying improvised story beats, like, when your characters get obsessed with an NPC and the DM has to sort of ad-lib a new scene around that, or work it into the plot. And AI streamlined player introductions could mean anything from character creation tools to AI created and run intro adventures. The point is, this is a much wider scope of the integration of AI into the future of D&D projects than we have ever seen Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast talk about before. And according to Chris Cox, much of it has already begun. So how do you feel about the possibly AI-powered future of D&D? Have you ever heard of a playgroup like the one Chris Cox is in? Let us know in the comment section, and please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.